Hi, this is Alex from phpacademy.org with a video tutorial for the new Boston. In this tutorial we're going to be taking a look at the Datepicker widget in the jQuery UI. Now we can bind the Datepicker to a particular form field, so make it easier for us functionality wise to allow our users to pick a date by clicking an input field. So at the moment there's nothing in my browser, and the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is create an input field, a text input field. So let's go over to our text editor and create an input field, and I'm going to give this a type text. I'm going to slightly reduce the size to 8 just so the date will fit nicely in there and we don't have too much white space left. And I'm then going to go ahead and give this an ID, so I'm going to call this date. So in our browser now we have a input field which a user is going to click on, and they're going to show it's going to show a date picker, the Datepicker widget. Now because we can actually bind the Datepicker widget to this input field, there's no need to create a separate area that will handle this. jQuery UI will handle this for us. It will actually show the Datepicker just below the field that we actually click on. So let's go back over to our text editor. The first thing that we're going to do is reduce the overall font size on the page, and this is because by default the theming will create the default font size, and we want to create a standard font size on our page in order to show this properly. So I'm just going to specify in body the font size to be 10 pixels. Okay, so now we want to actually append the Datepicker widget to this field, and it'll automatically show when we actually click on the input field. Now when the Datepicker is shown and we click away from this, it will actually remove it, so we don't need to handle any of the action ourselves. Oh, as well as that, when we actually click on a date, the date will automatically be inserted into the field, so it's extremely easy to implement. So what we need to do is we need to use a selector to select this date here, which is our input field, so date, and then all we need to do is bind on the widget, so this is just Datepicker. Now by default, without specifying any options within our curly brackets as we usually would with widgets and interactions, we actually have the functionality now existing within this input field. So now when we click on the input field, we automatically get this Datepicker up. Now we can browse dates and it's fully functional, ready to use. Let's just go ahead and click on, say, tomorrow, which is the 29th of July 2011. When we click on this, you'll notice that the date is automatically inserted into the field. Now if we want to go back and change this, we can then go ahead and click back on the field and change this to a different date. So it will automatically update the date we choose. So now that we've established the functionality and the working of the Datepicker, this is suitable to go into a normal form. So for example, if you were to take a date in a form field, you'd be able to implement the Datepicker and it would automatically put this text in there. When you say go ahead and press a submit button, this will be submitted along with the rest of the data in your form. So obviously we're not going to go through actually creating a form and submitting anything, but I'm going to show you a few options that might help you depending on date formats and available dates. So at the moment when we click on it, we have this format, which is the month, the day, and then the year. Now let's just say we wanted to go ahead and change the day to the first element of this date. So we wanted it to read the 29th of the 7th 2011. So we can do this by specifying the date format option. So date format, we can now choose a textual representation of a date that we want to implement, or we want the Datepicker widget to implement for us. So at the moment it's set to MMDDYY. So let's just go back and see that that looks exactly the same. You can see that we've got exactly the same functionality exist in here and the same date format. But we can obviously then just go around and change this. So we could change it to the day, the month, and then the year. So now what's going to happen is when we click on, say, the 29th of July 2011, we now show the date first, then the month, then the year. Different countries have different ways of displaying dates by default, and more recognisable to the UK, it's the date first, then the month. So depending on sort of like localization, you can go ahead and change this to suit your needs. Now you don't just need to use slashes, you can go ahead and implement hyphens into this as well, also depending on how you wanted the date to be shown. So you can now see that we've got hyphens instead of slashes. You could obviously even then go ahead and do just spaces, for example. And this would work in exactly the same way. However, usually with databases, database tables, you would submit a date with slashes. It's entirely preference.